Okay, welcome everybody here to the EJSA coverage of the SpaceX GSAT-20 Falcon 9 launch here. All right, I did screw up the YouTube naming, so that YouTube VOD's just going to get named GSAT-20, even though it's satisfactory, but I supposedly fixed that here. Anyway, the SpaceX cast is live here, showing some B-roll footage of them putting the satellite together. So we'll switch over into coverage. We're T-minus 6 minutes away from launching here. Okay, let's get to it. Let's get to that launch coverage and go from there. Nice B-roll footage.
Discovery, go at throttle.
Debbie! Yeah, we'll fix it in post.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Juicebot, hey man, 70-month resub. Zebby, 24-month resub. Thank you very much. And Red Panda with a raid of 78. Thank you very much. Red, what's going on? What is GSAT? It seems like a satellite for Israel here.
We are at just about T-minus 5 minutes from liftoff of Falcon 9 from Space Launch Complex 40 at
Tanks are
Cape.
pressurizing for strongback retract.
Here we go.
We just heard the tanks are now pressing up in preparation for retracting the strongback. And at liftoff, the transporter erector, or TE, or otherwise known as the strongback, will retract in order to clear the way for Falcon 9's ascent. And to prepare for that retraction, we will see the clamp arms open around the base of the second stage.
Strongback retract has started.
There, we just heard that call out. You should see those clamp arms just below the fairing starting to open up any second now. There you go. You can see those clamp arms opening. And this will allow the strongback to retract away from the vehicle. And this is to
Hey,
clear the way
Matt's
for ascent.
55 euros super chat. Thanks, dude. Jeez. You need to do that, man.
Should be seeing that strongback start to recline in just a couple seconds here.
Okay, strongback's going to move back into the 89-degree position. It's just going to move back just a little teeny weeny bit because this is a throwback transporter erector. So
Discovery,
when
go at
Falcon 9
throttle up.
goes to launch, that thing will shoot away off to the
There you can
side.
see the
So it's only going to
strongback
move
is
enough
starting
away
to lean away just slightly from the
yeah, what
vehicle.
he said.
At this point in the
Red,
countdown,
thank you
both
very
the
much for
first
the raid.
and
I do
second
appreciate
stages
it.
are
Drew
nearly
Zenz with a
fully
9-month
loaded with
resub.
1
Thank
million
you.
pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. The first stage and the second stage should finish loading propellant just about a minute apart from each other, with the first stage wrapping up at T-minus 3 minutes, and the second stage will wrap up at around T-minus 2 minutes.
Okay, so GSAT-20 is launching on booster 1073. That's 1073, first stage. 19th flight on a 26-day turnaround. It flew less than a month ago, that's pretty awesome. It's SpaceX's 415th mission, 115th mission of 2024, and the 399th Falcon 9 mission, 113th Falcon 9 mission of 2024. That info is coming at you from
coming up
our
next
friends
at
Curtis,
T-minus 2
our
minutes,
friends
we
over at
should
Next
hear
Space
that
Flight, courtesy of Next Space
LOX
Flight.
loading has completed
Hey,
on the
WD.
second stage. Following that, at T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup. And startup means that the rocket's autonomous internal
I
flight
know, Vasi,
computers
it's
have
crazy.
taken over the launch countdown. And following that, just inside of T-minus 2 seconds, we will light those 9 Merlin 1D engines for liftoff. So far, the payload
those?
continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket at this time.
There's two vertical tanks
Stage 2, LOX load is complete.
right there.
And
Were
there we
those-
just heard that call out. Stage 2 LOX loading is complete, which will wrap up propellant loading on the vehicle. and that began at
Discovery,
around T
go at
minus
throttle up.
35 minutes.
Nico Deary, 913 sub. Thank you, sir, for the awesome content to learn,
So again,
watch,
coming
and
up
learn.
next at
Thank you very
T-minus
much for
1
the
minute will
support.
be the startup phase. So let's listen in as we hear a series of callouts that lead up to launch.
Was this always here?
Ground gas closeouts.
I don't remember that being there.
So that first callout you just heard was for ground gas closeout. You can see a little bit of the remaining propellant in the TE lines is now being vented.
How many times has this booster flown?
See that
This is the 19th flight. It has flown 18 times prior. The towers are for lightning because lightning strikes a lot in Florida, and you don't want that hitting your multi-million-dollar rocket vehicle with electronics on it that are already sensitive enough. Falcon 9 should go into startup now.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And great news there. Falcon 9 has just entered startup, so the onboard flight computers have now taken
Crew 9
control
launched
of
from
the
this one,
launch
Ando, yes.
countdown.
Go for launch.
And there we just heard our go for launch from our launch
There we
director.
are. Go
so
for
let's
hamster.
listen in
I
as
mean
we
launch.
lift off Falcon 9.
Just try SCE to auxiliary. It'll be fine. Yeah,
T-minus
econ.
30 seconds.
Try SCE to auxiliary. SCE
Discovery,
to
go
aux.
at
The hell
throttle
is
up.
that? Yes, I have an SCE switch on my desk. You don't?
T-minus 15.
All right. 10 seconds.
10, 9, 8,
Sound suppressor is
7.
on.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ignition?
Ignition. And liftoff. Go Falcon. Go GSAT-20.
Okay. GSAT-20. Off the ground, cleared the tower in the air. Another Falcon 9 launch.
Pitching downrange. Stage 1 chamber pressure nominal.
Good call for propulsion there. Should get a call for power and telemetry here at around the 44-second mark. Into the clouds. A lot of low clouds on the Cape today.
T plus 30 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying the GSAT-20 satellite. Now, during ascent here, we will
Power
tilt.
and telemetry are nominal.
There it is.
We will tilt or gimbal the
late on
engines,
that call,
and this
but
will
that's
turn
okay.
the rocket horizontally in a maneuver known as a gravity turn. Now we're still going up, as you can see in that telemetry in the bottom left side of your screen.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
We're also heading horizontally away from the launch pad, now at supersonic speeds. We should be throttling the engines down soon in preparation for max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Max Q.
Everything's looking
There we
good
go, we
here.
just heard that call out. This is a critical moment during flight because the combined stresses caused by Falcon 9 accelerating through the atmosphere and the ambient static pressure are at their greatest. Now, the rocket typically needs to go about 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth and to get into orbit. You can track our progress to orbit by keeping an eye on that stage 1 telemetry in the bottom left side of your screen. We just heard we're starting
4,700
the
kilos
ascent
on the
chill
satellite.
on the MVAC engine, and we are coming up on a series of events. Those are main engine cutoff, or MECO, followed by stage separation, second engine start 1, or SES1, and then following that is fairing separation.
2 minutes
During
in.
MECO, we do shut
Everything
down
looks
those
good.
9 M1D
You can see the
engines,
shadow from the plume
and then
over there
following
on the
that, we
clouds.
separate the first stage and the second stage. Once separated from the second stage, the booster will flip its orientation and begin heading back to Earth, and simultaneously the second stage MVAC engine will ignite. Following that quickly will be a fairing separation. So we should be coming up on MECO in just a few seconds here.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
Good separation. Upper stage ignition.
MVAC ignition.
And there we go. We just saw that series
Good.
of events, starting with main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, and then following that was second engine start 1. As you can see there on your screen, the MVAC engine is now lit in space and heading towards orbit.
Good.
Coming up shortly, you should hear a call out for fairing separation.
First stage now coasting for landing out on
Getting
just
some
read
great
the
views
instructions.
of both stages in flight right now. You can see the first stage on the left side of your screen, now in a coast phase, and the second stage on the right side of your screen, burning towards orbit.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there we go. Great news. Just
Something's
saw those two fairing
waving
halves
around on that
separate.
satellite.
Our payload GSAT-N2 is now exposed to the vacuum of space, heading towards its intended orbit. Now we're just at about T plus 3 minutes and 45 seconds into today's mission. At T plus 6.5 minutes, we expect to have some great views of the first stage entry burn. Now for this entry burn, we do light 3 of the M1D engines on the first stage, and that'll start with the center E9 engine, followed shortly by E1 and E5 engines. And this slows the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere.
It looks
We need
fine
to do
me,
this in
Jeremy.
order to
Everything
reduce
looks
re-entry
fine here.
forces, and this ultimately
I'm just
helps
wondering
us
about the
recover
flapping
and
on the
reuse
satellite.
the second stage, or the first stage rather. During this entry burn, Falcon 9 is decelerating by firing its Merlin engines, but we are still moving very fast. And this causes the vehicle to fly through Merlin's exhaust gases, also sometimes called the rocket's plume, and this will deposit a layer of soot on the vehicle's surface.
Yeah, sure,
That's
bro.
why our flight-proven vehicles look so toasty.
I mean, you'd probably want to wait for a little
Of
bit
course,
more
that
fair
soot comes
conditions,
from
but
the
yeah, I don't see why a
carbon-based
crew
fuel
mission
that
couldn't
Falcon
launch
9
on this.
uses. And we are coming
Yeah,
up
there's
on
some
that entry
MLI
burn
that was floating
in
around
just
on it, Phil. You
about
see
a
that?
minute now.
As long as it didn't say remove before flight, it should be fine.
You might notice in the first stage telemetry on the bottom left side of your screen, our altitude is now decreasing while our speed is increasing. Gravity has taken over and the vehicle is
Both
now...
vehicles are on nominal trajectories.
The first stage is now heading back down towards Earth on a nominal trajectory, as we just heard on the nets. And of course, the second stage continuing to accelerate towards its intended orbit, now going over 13,000 kilometers per hour at an altitude of 160 kilometers.
This launch from Slick 40, Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. You see some, there's a little bit of solid oxygen accumulating on the gas generator.
Getting some really
dump
incredible
manifold there.
views from space here on both stages. And again, coming up on that entry burn in just around 20 seconds.
Yeah,
on
Mats,
the
this
first
is
stage.
fine.
You
It's
can see
just
the
an
vehicle
open
is
vent from
now
the thermal conditioning.
positioned
It's supposed to do
relight
that,
those
dude.
engines and
It's a
re-enter
little-
the atmosphere.
Guys, the plume is
See, our
just
grid fins are deployed, and these fins will help guide the vehicle back down to its landing location.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
okay. Supersonic retropropulsion time. Yeah,
Stage
the
one,
venting is
FTS
normal. It
is
just looks a
safe.
little bit different, dudes, because it's
There we
backlit
just heard the
again.
call out for the entry burn, and as you can see, those engines are now burning on the first stage
Actually, it wouldn't
and
be
rapidly
backlit on
slowing
this
us
'cause
down.
it's- well,
And this
yeah.
burn should last just around 20
Close
seconds.
enough. There we go. Falcon 9 using its engines to slow down and push re-entry heating away there.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Okay. A good
There's that call
shutdown.
out for the end of the entry burn. Reusability is key to lowering the cost of spaceflight, and this enables more investment in critical scientific research. The Falcon 9 first stage that is supporting today's mission just performed that entry burn for its 19th time. The Merlin engines on the first stage are optimized for sea level. These engines achieve 190,000 pounds of thrust during ascent and descent. And the MVAC engine on the second stage is optimized to operate in the vacuum of space, producing just about 220,000
Stage
pounds
2
of
is in
thrust.
terminal guidance.
What are we talking about, BA
Now, we just heard
Belfid?
stage 2 is in terminal
10
guidance,
plus
which
minutes for
means coming up
Starship?
next we will
What
be
do you mean?
shutting the MVAC engine down on the second stage. Following that very shortly should be our landing burn on the first stage.
Fight plasma with fire,
Stage 1
Mats.
transonic.
That's what's going on. Stage 1's
Now
slowing
we just
down
heard
here.
the stage 1 is now traveling below the speed of sound. You can see we are approaching some cloud cover on the left side of your screen.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Discovery, go at throttle
And
up.
again, as a reminder, we
Vanos.
are targeting a landing on our drone ship. Just read the instructions, which is currently in the Atlantic Ocean.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Okay, we got the landing
we go,
burn
just
here.
Shutdown.
We just heard the landing burn has started on the first stage, and the second engine has now
Into
shut
the clouds.
down.
Okay.
You can see the drone ship just below the first stage there as we come in for a
A
landing.
little windy out there today. First stage moving around a little bit.
Orbital insertion.
Whoa!
Stage 1 landing light deploy.
Okay. We got a good landing. Dude,
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
the drone ships have
And there you have it. That
little
landing
water
marks
gushers on
SpaceX's
them. You see that?
371st recovery of an orbital class rocket, which includes
I've-
first stage landings for
when-
Falcon 9 and
I haven't
Falcon
seen those
Heavy.
before.
We did also hear we had a nominal orbit insertion on the second stage.
The drone ship has a little pad
Our second
deluge
stage is
system.
now
You see that?
embarking on its coast
I've never
phase.
seen. When did that
And
happen?
after this coast phase, we will light that MVAC engine for a second time around the T plus 28-minute mark. And that will be followed by payload deploy around the T plus 34-minute mark.
Never seen that. I've watched every one of these things, dude. I've never seen that before. Replay, please. Yeah. 26,848 at 164. That's good for geostationary transfer. These numbers are fine for GTO. Hang on.
Our
I gotta
customer for
ask
today's mission
Alex.
is New Space India Limited.
This is Brian Malin on Countdown 1. I wanted to say a special word for Michael Taylor, as this will be his final mission. He has been at the forefront of spaceflight.
Come on, hey. Come on.
We would not be where we are today in United States space program history without him, and we'd not be where we are today at SpaceX without Mike Taylor. So
Mikey.
from all of us at SpaceX, Mike, we salute you, we thank you, and we look forward to your future journeys.
Great words there from our LD, and congrats on an amazing career, Mike Taylor. Now, the second stage is now embarking on its coast phase. And again, as I said, we will be lighting that engine for a second time around the T plus 28-minute mark, and following that is payload deploy at the T plus 34-minute mark. And before we take a short break for that coast phase, we do have a couple of messages from our customer, the Indian Space Research Organization. And after that, we'll see you back
retiring.
here in just about 15 minutes.
GSAT-20 is a next-generation communication satellite owned by NSIL, weighing 4,700 kilogram, built by ISRO for meeting the high-throughput communication requirements. It's primarily operating in Ka band, providing almost 48 gigabytes per second throughput. This spacecraft is, after the launch, is going to be positioned at 68-degree east longitude, providing broadband services and in-flight connectivity, primarily on the Indian region. There are going to be about 32 sport beams covering India mainland and islands of this region. And primarily this is designed to also to enhance the capacity by providing 8 narrow sport beams over the northeastern region of India, which requires this support for essential communication requirements. The whole spacecraft is designed using the ISRO's well-proven I-6K bus with a 6.2 kilowatt power generation operating in 70 volts bus voltage. And the propulsion system is a bipropellant system for orbitizing and its station keeping. And we are expecting that its precise launching, we will have an orbital life of almost 14 years. While building the spacecraft, we used the support of Indian industries who built us with a lot of subsystems, including structures and hardwares meant for the satellites and also the payloads. And ISRO centers contributed in various ways to build the satellite finally. I'm really happy that the satellite is now ready for launch and will reach its destined orbit. Meantime, in the ground, as soon as the satellite is in the required spot, we are ready with the ground infrastructure to provide the network or communication very, very fast as soon as it is declared operational. Hoping to see the launch go really fine, and all the very best to the team.
Damn, dude. That guy's resume is nuts. So, Mike Taylor's been working at SpaceX for 17 years, dude. Yeah. 16 years, 9 months, SpaceX. Full-time engineer. And before that, he was a senior manager of integrated launch operations from 2008 to 2019. And then before that, he worked on Delta II and Delta IV launches, doing flight operations and tracking station requirements. Yeah. And before that, he worked at Boeing. So he worked at Boeing in 2000. 2006, he joined ULA. And then 2008, he joined SpaceX. He's been there since the beginning, dude. That's cool. He has a master's from FIT and then a bachelor's in meteorology from The Ohio State. Huh. Cool. Hey, come on back now. So it's going to coast a little ways and then it should get to deploy here. Impressive. Let's see Paul Allen's resume. Christian, it looks like you're going back to school. I just got accepted into a supply chain and logistics program, which starts in January. Congratulations, man. Here I am struggling to make toast in the morning. Is India Space Launch Complex in the background? Yes. ISRO. Yep. Are you excited for Flight 6? Does Jack have no hair? Yeah. Yeah, his resume is fine and all, but you went to Full Sail. I should really go back to school, dude. Did you see we have a TFR for a VIP at Brownsville? I did. Does a bear poop in the woods? Does my dog poop in the woods? Yep. Yeah, there was some loose MLI on that satellite, guys. India has a Department of Space. More of that, please. Bear poops wherever it wants to. Yeah. What's MLI? Insulative wrap. Trey. Yeah, there was some insulative wrap flapping around. Sure, I agree. Yep. Starship will splash down at dawn. We're getting, yeah, Ando. They're targeting a late in the day launch window in Texas tomorrow. Targeting a late in the day launch window in Texas tomorrow because they want to get a Starship landing in the daytime. Multi-layer insulation. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Creation, I'm gonna hold that comment, dude. I don't see how that's relevant. Check Space Coast live. Why? The crawler transporter moving around? Got some cleater videos there. CT2 is moving though. Yeah, that's our buddies over at NASA spaceflight have Space Coast Live here. And the crawler transporter's moving around at the Cape, which is pretty cool. Is it an electric crawler or a fuel crawler? Both. It's got Alco 261C V16 diesels in it. It's got 2 of them, and they're driving an electric generator. So, yes, it's a hybrid. See last, please. Oh, yeah, we'll check that out, Baron. A hybrid from the 1960s. Yep. Where's it going? I kind of have to get a little bit of reference here. I can't really see, unless we back out, where CT2 is right now. Let's take a look. Okay, CT2 is out in front of the VEAB right now. So she's out in front of the VAB. Where's it going? Well, I'm thinking. Is the mobile launcher still at 39B? I think it's going to get the ML. I think the ML1, SLS's mobile launcher is still out at the pad. I'm pretty sure. If it is, that's where it's going. It's going to go get it. They should, per Artemis 2 processing flow, they should be getting ready to stack. Artemis 2, they should be getting ready to stack it. I gotta sneeze. Turbo. In January, do we know who will be the new NASA administrator? Don't know. It's inside, goalie? Yeah, okay. If it's inside, I'm not sure where it's going, dude. Could be doing stuff with ML2. Gesundheit. Bedankt. Where's it going? Anywhere it wants. Well, it can only drive on the crawlerway, Shadows. If it tries to drive off the crawlerway, it'll sink into the ground. Should they cancel SLS? No. No, Dons, I don't think so. I think SLS should be ramped up. Seriously, I think they need to give the program what it needs to drastically expand to be able to tool up SLS to launch a lot more. Not the most popular opinion in spaceflight, but they're starting to stack SRBs today. Yeah, so the mobile launcher has to be in there if they're starting to stack those SRBs. Sorry, it took me a second. Guys, Monday. Chalk that one up to just Mondays. I don't think we should duplicate, like double NASA's budget, Josh. I think we need to give the programs what they need. I think a problem with NASA is that we don't give programs what they need. We either give them too much or too little. Should Ford be developing a moon rover? I mean, can't say that I would hate that, but... Test drive to 39A? What, goalie? You're going to get to second stage engine start here in a second, Victory, so that's good. Precisely, Brandon, yes. If they asked you to be a NASA administrator, would you do it? Yes. Sure. Would I screw it up? Yeah. Oh yeah, I would screw stuff up. I would do it, but I would warn everybody. I'm pretty sure I don't know the nuances to this business. So, you have the satisfactory build that's more important. Why is Starship so late tomorrow? Serious, they're launching late so they can it'll be daytime in the landing zone. They want to see a daytime landing. Yeah, because Ando, I'd be honest, if I was NASA administrator, I would go in there and clean up shop. I'd clean up shop. It wouldn't happen at first. I wouldn't go in there and Mr. Deeds everybody. You're fired, you're fired. I'd sit there and just let NASA do its thing for a month and a half, and I would figure out who's worthless and then fire them. I wouldn't be making any friends. Like I said, the nuance would be lost. I wouldn't make a lot of friends. I would be... Yeah. Not great. Yeah, what would you say you do here? Yeah. Yeah. Something like that, Zizep, yeah. Oh, dude, look at this shot. Yo! Yeah, if it was me, Victory, that's what I would do. I would pretty much put together a team to figure out where SLS could lower costs with operations and what's needed to get it nice and healthy.
Lifted off at 1:31 p.m. Eastern Time from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Those fairing halves are being recovered by our recovery ship Bob, and this was the 5th flight for one fairing half, as well as the 1st flight for the other. We also did recover the 1st stage on our drone ship, and that marks its 19th landing. Now we're just moments away from a 2nd ignition of the MVAC engine on the 2nd stage, and this will carry the GSAT-20 payload into the orbit needed to deploy the satellite. This burn will be followed by shutdown of the MVAC, also known as 2nd engine cutoff or SECO 2. So let's wait for those callouts. Should be starting that engine in just around 40 seconds.
Some solid oxygen coming off the vehicle there. That got dislodged from the ullage thruster firings. They're chilling.
As you can see in that telemetry, we now are at about 240 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. We are now in what's called a parking orbit.
There you go,
and
Victory.
the 2nd burn will take us to our geostationary
on
transfer
Discord for
orbit,
Space
which
News.
is
I
the
see
deploy
it.
orbit for the GSAT-20 payload.
Cool. Thanks, Trey. Okay. They're thermally conditioning the engine. That's what that vent is. They're basically just priming it to get it ready to do this. That is a big... Watch the chunk of solid oxygen. That thing's gonna go away real quick. Bye-bye! Yeah! Awesome.
As you can see there on your screen,
Why do they mix and match fairings?
The MVAC engine.
Processing.
We are now accelerating into our geostationary transfer orbit. This burn should last just around a minute in total.
Yeet! You see it? You see it basically just destroy itself once it got into the plume. It melted instantly.
The 2nd stage is now rapidly accelerating the payload, traveling well over 30,000 kilometers per hour at an altitude of 250 kilometers above the surface of the Earth.
So all that solid oxygen was accumulated from them venting down the engine. So whenever they fire the motor,
some great views of the MVAC nozzle.
Whenever they fire the Merlin vacuum, when they're done, they purge the entire plumbing out with helium, right? The reason why is because you don't want components rusting. Liquid oxygen, it'll make things rust. It'll oxidize things very quickly. So they purge it out with helium, which is what you see coming out the vent lines at shutdown. You'll see it here in a second. But the helium does not solidify when you vent it into a vacuum because, see?
MVAC shutdown.
See? The helium will not solidify because helium doesn't like to solidify at all. That's the short story.
Engine cut off.
So, Oh,
And a
nominal orbit insertion. So see, they're pumping helium through the plumbing on the engine, and the helium's venting out, right? It also, what that's doing is evacuating a little bit of all of the gaseous oxygen that's left inside, so it doesn't rust the turbine machinery, right? So when they go to restart the engine, what they do is they trickle the liquid oxygen right back in. They trickle it back into the plumbing, right? And they make sure that the engine is fully primed and cold enough to fire, because the turbine machinery on the Merlin vacuum needs to be cold. It needs to be really cold. Why does it need to be really cold? It's moving cold propellants. It's going to get cold whether you like it or not if you're moving liquid oxygen. Lightning down there in Africa. So when they went to start the engine up again, that you had that big chunk of solid oxygen. That is the result of the vent line being open and them pushing liquid oxygen from the second stage into the turbine machinery. Because if you push it in there, all it would do is just pressurize the gases in there. You have to have a vent open. So they trickle the propellants into the engine, right? And the vent line opens and they make sure that it's fully saturated. So some of that oxygen, which does like to solidify in the vacuum, right? The reason why helium doesn't and liquid oxygen or oxygen does is because of phase change in elements, et cetera, et cetera. But the solid oxygen that does get pushed through and pushed out the vent line does solidify. And when it does, it makes these big awesome snowflakes. And that's what that was when the engine fired. You saw a big chunk of the thermal conditioning oxygen that got dumped overboard. There's definitely a zip tie right there. Yes, it's a space zip tie though. You could tell because of the way it is. Is the cold of space not cold enough for the MVAC? Space isn't cold, Dean. It's nothing. That's important to understand. Space is not cold. Space is nothing. It's the absence of heat. All right? That's what temperature is. Temperature is measuring the amount of heat in something. All right? Space is nothing. There's no heat. It's nothing. So just because stuff seems like it's cold in space doesn't necessarily mean it is. The reason why, and that's what I mean about the phase change. The reason why, like oxygen will solidify when it goes out of the vent line is because it's going from liquid to gas to solid really, really fast. The reason why is because you get a drop in pressure, right? There's lightning down there on the surface. You get that drop in pressure. You're going from a pressurized pneumatic line, that's the vent line, right, to absolute zero in a split second. It does take a second for all that heat to leave the oxygen, and in that split second where the heat is leaving and the pressure is dropping, the temperature goes down. But it will go to zero. It goes to nothing, and it'll just sit there. And it'll look like it's frozen. It is frozen, but it's not gonna space. It's not because space is cold. It's because the pressure dropped really, really quick in that momentary second from being pressurized inside of the vent line to complete depressurization, to vacuum. It'll freeze it. That's the reason why helium doesn't. Helium does not freeze. Helium will not solidify. And the reason why is because in order to get helium to solidify, it needs to be at a perfect 5 Kelvin, and it needs to stay there. And even the window of solidification for helium, it's really, really tiny, and you're not going to get it just venting helium overboard. You're not going to do that. Oxygen, however, will solidify at, I think it's 200 C or something. It'll solidify. So because you have such a huge difference between minus 200 C, which is, I think 73 Kelvin or something. You're going from 73 Kelvin to 0 in the vacuum. That gives it a window to solidify. That's why it solidifies and helium doesn't. But it's important to understand that space isn't cold. Space is nothing. It's nothing. Believe it or not, spacecraft don't have a problem with staying cold. You'd think that they would, but no. Spacecraft actually have problems shedding heat because there's no way to convect heat. There's no way to stay cool. You can't sweat. There's no air, right? There's no air to exchange the heat with. There's nothing to exchange the heat with except light. And that's how they do it. That's how they keep stuff cool. That's why you need radiators on everything. Because you can use thermal blackbody radiation to radiate your heat. Believe it or not, the perception, everybody says, oh, space is cold. No, space is nothing. Believe it or not, spacecraft have problems shedding heat in in space. The crazy part is that you have trouble shedding heat, but you can absorb heat. Because when you're in sunlight, the sun's rays the rays of light are going to heat you up, right? That's why you need radiators on a craft. If a spacecraft had no radiators, it would melt in space. Ironically, you'd melt. Yeah, because there's no place for that heat to go. You're conducting all this heat from the sunlight. So because you're conducting heat from sunlight, the only way to radiate it out is through light. Yeah, somebody that's way smarter than me figured that out. Those phase change graphs come in handy for situations like these. They do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, space is nothing. Believe it or not, it looks cold, but it's not. It's nothing. And spacecraft have trouble getting rid of heat on a space in space. Oh, there we go. There's the deploy. GSAT-20.
Payload deploy confirmed.
There we go.
And there goes GSAT-N2. You just heard that call out, and you can see the satellite moving away from the second stage on your screen right now.
You need thermal
That
radiators.
will wrap
Yuri.
up
Yep.
our coverage for today. Thank you for joining us for SpaceX's 114th successful launch of 2024.
You guys want me to really screw with you? The second stage engine, the Merlin vacuum. You know how it keeps itself cool? By glowing. There's a passive thermal protection system built into the alloy on that nozzle that they use for the Merlin vacuum engine. It glowing is how it's shedding heat. Yeah. Fun fact. Yep. It's radiating heat. So you got to go back to physics class if you want to learn and understand this stuff. There's three main ways of moving heat around, right? You have conduction, which is touching something. So if you have like an electric stove and you put a piece of metal on your burner, do not do this. It'll heat it up because it's touching it. It'll conduct the heat. That's conduction. Then there's convection. Convection is using the air to conduct heat. So this would be like putting an iron in the fire. The hot air is moving past it and it's going to convect it. It's going to absorb all the heat. And then there's radiation. Radiation is what we're talking about here, using light, using basically infrared light to get rid of heat or conduct heat. So yeah, those three methods of heat transfer. Two of them you can't use in space. You can't use conduction because you're not touching anything. You can't use convection because there's no air, so you have to use radiation. Is 900 kilometer altitude low? No, this is a transfer orbit, dude. So look, they deployed it here, but look at the speed and look at your altitude. So 33,860 and going down means you are moving to apogee. You're moving to your highest point, because did you see the altitude was going up really fast and speed was going down pretty slow comparatively? That means you have a really high apogee, meaning the highest point in your orbit is where the satellite basically needs to be out in geostationary. So they deployed it at 970, and the reason why you would do that is because the second stage doesn't need to be with the satellite. The satellite can just kind of coast out on its own, and it can use its own thrusters to get to its final destination. The stage just needed to give it that kick to get up there. So they deploy it now. They deploy it at 900 kilometers. That's also so you can like check the satellite out on the way out. It's about 6 hours to get to apogee at that particular speed. Yeah, it should take about 6 hours. Can you replay the landing of stage 1? Hold on. Everything's going all funky today. My YouTube chat just crashed. Denny with the 77 months. Thank you. I was wondering how much Delta V those SAT buses have. It depends on the SAT bus, dude. That thing probably, if I had to guess, it probably has like 2 to 3 kilometers a second. If I had to guess, it's just a guess. It's probably less than that. It depends on the insertion. It depends on what rocket you use. Well, we crashed? No, I did. We're good. We're good, YouTube chat. Don't worry. I always wondered how the space shuttle kept cool. The space shuttle has radiators on the inside of the payload bay doors, Willie. They're on the inside. Yep, yep. Landing replay from SpaceX. Yeah, that's the first time I've seen the deluge system on the drone ships. I don't remember seeing those. Yeah, see, they have little water jets built under the deck of the drone ship. See them right there? That's to see 1, 2, 3. There's a little pad deluge system. Look at that. See them? That's weird, man. Ichiko Ama, going to bounce when I love your passion for space. Thank you. Yep, yep. I appreciate the bits, man. Thank you for the support. Yeah, I don't remember seeing those. Those got to be new. Before, they just spray the deck down with a fire hose. Like, see the little fire hoses right there? Now they just built the deluge system right into it. So what is this doing? We're talking about thermals. What does that do? Well, long story short, water is extremely conductive of heat. It's very good at conducting heat. It can absorb a lot of heat before it changes into, before it evaporates, basically. Well, it'll turn to steam, basically. That's the idea. Now, because of that, water is a great heat sink. It's an excellent heat sink. It can absorb crazy amounts of heat. The reason why they spray that down is because they're doing what's called film cooling. They put water on the deck of the drone ship. So when the booster does come in to land, right, the booster rocket exhaust heats up all the water, and the water absorbs all the heat so they don't melt the deck of the drone ship. Right? That's all. It's just film cooling. I don't know if it's really called that, but that's what's going on. Yeah, baby. Yeah, see, look. So what it does is when the rocket comes down, all that heat gets convected off of the rocket engines. It goes through the air and it gets absorbed by the water. Right? So you have the gas from the engines hitting the deck of the drone ship, but it's not. It's going to take the water. It's going to hit the water first. The water absorbs all the heat because water is more conductive of heat than metal is. Believe it or not, metal's a good conductor. Metal, you know, you expose metal to heat, it gets hot. Anybody that welds knows what I'm talking about. Water is really good at doing it. It's like an anomaly almost. It's insanely good at absorbing heat. So you can see that right here in this particular shot that the water right around where the flames are coming down has absorbed most of that heat. And when it does, it'll evaporate and it'll turn to steam. Right? See all the steam coming off the deck of the drone ship? This is a way to dissipate the heat of the rocket engine so it doesn't melt the deck. So the deck doesn't get screwed up. Usually around 2 to 2.5 kilometers a second delta V. It takes about 1.8 or 1.5 kilometers a second to circularize, depending on GTO, is super synchronous. Yeah, Phil, that was my guess. That's why I said about 2 kilometers a second. Most of that is used for the circularization. Yep, yep. Yeah, see? Watch, it'll just, see, it'll instantly turn all to steam. Fun fact, if you really want to nerd out hard with this, you see that right there? That's how we generate electricity. Right there. From what you see going on right here. Most big industrial power plants, it doesn't matter if it's nuclear, it doesn't matter if it's coal, it doesn't matter if it's oil fired. All those things do is give you heat. And that heat heats up water and turns it to steam. And that steam turns a turbine, which turns a generator. Every power plant is built like this. Well, every big power plant. Save wind, solar, hydroelectric. Even hydroelectric uses gravity as it uses gravity's effect on a battery to spin a turbine, but that's another story. But most big power plants use heat. They use steam. That hasn't changed since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. How we harness that energy inside of the steam has changed a little bit. We went from expansion piston motors, basically like a steam engine, to a turbine, because turbines are awesome. Yeah, that's the end of the story. Latent heat of vaporization. That's what makes water such a good cooling method. Yep. Quick off-topic question to Mass SME. I've never been to Boston. Friend visiting there today says bars close super early. Blue laws, Bob. Blue laws. Wouldn't it be evaporative cooling instead of film cooling? Well, there's a film of water on the deck of the drone ship. Turbines. Yeah, I like saying turbine. Yeah, exactly, John. Yep, that's how we generate power. That's how most of the power generation that we do is just done by what you see right there. You can see actually when the water hits peak heat saturation, right? Because it all goes away. You notice how all the steam goes away? Like you could see it right here. See that? Peak heat saturation. This water has absorbed too much heat and it's turning basically right to gas. Pretty cool, huh? Physics, man. Physics is baller. Would you call a drone ship a steam deck? Oh, okay. All right, that's enough. That's enough. Back to satisfactory. That's enough. That's enough. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the GSAT-20 launch coverage. I'm going to switch us back over to satisfactory. If you're on the YouTube side of things, you know the drill. Stand by, momentary loss of signal. If you're on Twitch, just chill here for a second. I'll be back in a couple minutes.